Good afternoon. It is a hot one here in Worcester, Massachusetts. This is Funny Like Clown Podcast. I am your host, Dennis Wirth, episode 70, cruising right along. July 20th, 2020. I am on location here in Worcester, Massachusetts to discuss Worcester comedian Dennis Leary. Legendary Worcester comedian. As always, Funny Like Clown Podcast is brought to you by G Vegas Buffalo Sauce. For the spicy, sweet, savory taste at game time, there is only one G Vegas, available at www.gvegas.webs.com. And, in a time where statues are being vandalized because they're offensive, I chose to do a podcast outside of this statue here, which nobody's touched. So apparently there's a fine line between what's offensive and what's not. Apparently, a man apparently making love to a turtle is an acceptable statue here in Worcester, Massachusetts. Nobody's offended by that, where other statues are just being torn down. So, what's going on in Worcester? I don't know, but Turtle Boy stands, while the rest of them are falling. So, hats off to Worcester, man. They're not giving into the hate, Where does hate stop and bestiality begin? I don't know. But, boom. You can tell I'm in Worcester, can't you, folks? That's right. I'm not afraid. I'm a big dude. I'll whoop some ass here in Worcester. All right, man. What do we got going on with Dennis Leary? As I mentioned, Worcester born. That's why we're on location at the Turtle Boy in Worcester. He was a star and co-creator of Rescue Me. Seen in the films The Amazing Spider-Man and Draft Day. And man, The Amazing Spider-Man, and I was always it was one of my favorite superheroes. Now the child sport superhero is my favorite superhero, but as a kid, The Amazing Spider-Man and the Hulk, they were my two favorite superheroes. Did some voiceover work, which he's really well known for. Big money in voiceover work. A Bug's Life and Ice Age, classic Ice Age. I'm watching my son there. He absolutely loved that one. He and his wife were the inspiration for the Amazon series Modern Life Episode 4. And Amazon's taking over, man. Netflix, Amazon, you thought you had to get on TV to make a star out of yourself. Well, I'll tell you what, Netflix is taking over the comedy scene. Everybody's going there for some big money, too. People are paying to see them, and that's the new wave of things. You ain't got to get on TV to be a star anymore. You can use the internet. From 2015 to 2016, he's been on the FX channel doing a show called Sex, Drugs, and Rock and Roll. And here's what I didn't know. He's actually third cousin to Conan O'Brien, so I guess Conan's another guy from these parts. So a lot of talent coming out of these parts in Worcester, and how could you not be inspired by the Turtle Boy making love, to a turtle? I mean, that's just, that don't mess with your head at all, you know what I'm saying? All right, let's see. He went to Worcester Public School. After that, he went to Emerson College in Boston. While he was at Emerson College in Boston, he actually founded the Emerson College Comedy Workshop, and that actually continues to this day. So he started it, and they carried it on after he left. And workshops are good, man. Young comics, you need some advice. They get together, they brainstorm. It's a great thing to be among your peers and try to work out some comedy. Let's see. After he graduated, he actually stayed on and taught some comedy writing classes for 5 years at the college. And 2005, they gave him an honorary doctorate from the college. So, for all the work that he did in comedy, I mean, certainly if you hear Dennis Leary took that class, hey man, you're heading right down to take that class if you're interested in comedy, because if he started there, anybody can start there, right? He started doing the Boston underground comedy scene, doing some open mics at Play It Again Sam's. His first real gig came at Rascals Comedy Club as part of the TV show Rascals Comedy Hour. But a lot of things, man. They got local TV, they got local radio. Nobody starts at the top, okay? You want to start, you start locally, you do the local stuff. And I did a local television show, The Comedy Kitchen, for years, and I'm damn proud. I had some big guests for local TV, man. I brought on some really big names on that show. To this day, I'm proud of what I did, and I'm proud of what I'm doing here with Funny Like Clown Podcast. So he started out doing the local stuff. He wrote and appeared on the local comedy series Lenny Clark's Late Show. And he and Lenny revisited that time on the documentary When Stand Up Stood Out. So Lenny, he's the Boston legend everybody looks up to in these parts. And certainly, Dennis was working with Lenny on his show, his local television show. And that's what you got to try to get on. You start out of local stuff and you move up from there. And Dennis took advantage of the opportunities afforded him. He got noticed on there, and he did some sketches for MTV's Remote Control. And everybody says MTV nowadays, it's a shell of what it used to be, okay? If you're on MTV back in the 80s, every kid was tuned into MTV because they actually paid music back then. They don't anymore, and, you know, it's not the big credit to your name. I mean, sure, it's cool being on TV, saying you've been on MTV, but if you were on MTV back in the 80s, you were at the top of your game because they only had on the top people on that show. So he did, so it was a game show, Remote Control. I do remember tuning into that, and after doing sketches, he gained some fame for one sketch where he started doing a rant about REM, the musical group. Like I said, they used to play music on MTV, and he did a rant about that group. After gaining notoriety for that rant about REM, MTV had him quickly do some commercials because, you know, once people are following you, they want to make some money on your popularity. So he's starting to gain a little bit of popularity there. Boom, we're going to get you some more work. This is where he founded his persona, where he do some high-speed rants on various topics. And I remember before he was a star, you know, he had done some stuff that he started doing movies. He had a small part, and I forget, it was a Sylvester Stallone movie, and I forget, and I was watching it with my buddy. All of a sudden they showed him, and he started doing one of his rants, and my buddy Dave's like, "That's that dude, the dude who does the rants." Like, you didn't even know his name at that point, but you knew he did the rants. That's what you knew him for. So this was before he hit his mainstream popularity. One rant was the lead into a House of Pain video on MTV, so they used one of his rants to kick off the video, then led into the music. Released 2 comedy albums at that time, No Cure for Cancer in 1993 and Lock and Load in 1997. This is back when you could put out a comedy album and actually make some money. Now with all the free download, you can't do that anymore. You're into putting out free comedy specials, and then you got to charge twice as much for a ticket when they come to see you. That's where you make your money now, is at the live performance. And I remember Paul Stanley at KISS was watching a podcast. He's like, "Why should I have to meet you halfway? You know, why should I have to give you something for free to get you to come out and pay to my concert? I should be able to make money off of my album and make money off my concert." But those days are in the past because of the free download, and that's the world we live in, and people have adjusted to it. 2004, he released the EP, Merry Effing Christmas. 1993, this was probably one of his bigger hits. He did a song about the stereotypical American called Asshole, which gained major notoriety. Okay, so now he's going from your local star that you might have seen of, "Yeah, I recognize this guy, what's his name," to a guy where everybody nationwide actually knows the guy's name. Now, allegedly, okay, now I've had some running with the laws when I was young, learned my lesson, but I did learn as long as the newspapers use the word allegedly, you can say whatever the hell you want about a person. So allegedly, he stole that song from Louis C.K. Louis C.K. actually talked about it on the Opie and Anthony show. He went into great detail about how he stole that thing. So allegedly, that's what happened. 1995, he was asked by Boston Bruins legend Cam Neely to organize a Boston-based benefit show to help the Neely Cancer Charity. And if you're a comedian in Boston, you know all about this, man. It became known as Comics Come Home. And if you're a Boston comedian, you just watch that in awe every year. It's like you want so bad to be on that because that's where the top comedians in Boston are. I mean, he brings out all the big names for that. And, you know, I always said when you can do what you love to do and help people out at the same time, it's a win-win situation. Raising a lot of money for cancer, and it's one of the biggest comedy events, if not the biggest comedy event, you know, in Boston each year. So hats off to him for being a part of that and making good on that. You know, I mentioned at the top The Amazing Spider-Man and Draft Day and all the big movies. I mean, he's been in a lot of movies. I don't think any of them are bombs. They may not have been, you know, biggest hits as the ones well known, but he was in The Sandlot, Monument Ave, The Matchmaker, The Ref, Draft Day, Suicide Kings, Dog, Wag the Dog, Demolition Man, Judgment Night, The Thomas Crown Affair, and Operation Dumbo Drop. Here's what I didn't know. He was in the movie Natural Born Killers, but his scenes were cut, so you never seen him in because his scenes got cut. But I remember my hero, Sam Kinison. He was in the movie The Three Amigos, and his scenes got cut. And gosh, I would have always loved to see his scenes in that movie. And they said some bigger ups were looking for the footage, but back then it got recorded over, it got thrown away. The footage is gone, so we'll never see the work that Sam Kinison did. But gosh, yeah, Bill Murray, I guess, cut him out because he didn't want him stealing the scene like he stole it in Back to School. So, maybe Dennis did such a good job that they cut us because they didn't want him stealing the movie, man. So let's cut his scenes because we don't want him stealing the movie from us. But certainly, man, went on for a legendary career. He's known for the TV series The Job. Okay, that was his first TV series. Obviously, Rescue Me, that's the big hit. Everybody in the Boston tunes into right there that he's on now with Lenny Clark. He was nominated for Emmy in 2006 and 2007 for Outstanding Lead Actor in a Drama Series. 2008, he was nominated for Best Supporting Actor, HBO movie, Recount. So, you know, here he's doing the movie thing, he's doing the TV thing. I mean, he's doing it all. Boston guy, not forgetting where he came from, doing the, you know, Boston thing every year. And I always said that, you know, a lot of these guys, and I understand that, you got to tour. You can't just stay, you know, stay put on a bigger level. You know, if you want to fill the arenas, you got to move around. You know, if you're going to do a local comedy club, yeah, you can sit still and change your acts. They'll come out to see you. But this guy's hitting the next level. He was an avid Red Sox fan. He got to narrate the 2004 World Series theme for the Red Sox. So if the Red Sox come a-calling, you've hit the big time. All right, there's some sirens, so you know I'm in Worcester, okay? All right. Hey, I'm not saying Worcester's a rough town, but you got a boy making love to a turtle right behind me in a statue that has not been vandalized yet. Let's see. He did some more TV work. Major League Baseball's 2K8 advertisements. He did some Ford F-150 truck ads, and you know, Ford, that's the #1 seller of trucks in America. If they come calling, can you imagine what he got paid to do that? I don't even know. He did some Hulu and DirecTV NFL package ads. So, you know, even at the top of your game, they're still paying you big money to, you know, in between movies, you want to make a little side cash, go do a commercial, and they'll pay for your notoriety. Huge money, I'm sure Ford and these guys are paying them. We'll talk about that a little later. One funny thing I remember with the guy. Let's see. I guess one of the downfalls of his career, he produced the Fox TV series Canterbury's Law. It was canceled after only 8 episodes, but, you know, it's always said, I watch a lot of sports, and they say, you got to lose in the playoffs before you know how to win. Well, you got to fail in comedy before you know how to succeed. And a lot of these kids, man, they fail at comedy and say, oh, I can't do it, and walk away. The ones that win and the ones that get their ass kicked get back up and keep going forward. They don't let nothing keep them down. Because I've had many people attack me in comedy, and I don't slow down. I keep going, okay? They made fun of my TV show until I had the big stars come on. They made fun of my podcast until I got hundreds of people fucking a week tuning in. So don't ever listen to the haters, man, okay? Block them. I used to get in arguments with them, no more. I just block them immediately and I go on. Because if you hang around with positive people in life, positive things are going to happen. And if you give into the negativity, you know what's going to happen? Negative stuff, that's what's going to happen. This guy, Dennis Leary, never gave into the negative, man. He kept going. He hosted Fashion Rocks on CBS. So he did. Now here's the one. He did a Funny or Die video where he critiqued his own films. I think he called it Dennis Leary Critiquing Dennis Leary. And man, Funny or Die for a short time, that site was getting almost as big as YouTube. And I forget, some people created it. I guess it was a money thing, and it's a shell of what it used to be. A guy hired me to do a Christmas movie. It was a Christmas story, sort of. I was the lead actor in a short film, which he put on there. It got all kinds of hit. People loved it, and I don't know now. I guess they pulled it. They don't do free hosting anymore. They actually got a YouTube channel, so YouTube pays to host. But it's a shell of what it used to be. But back in the day, Funny or Die, that was one hell of a website to get some short films out on. That's where you started, where YouTube was good, but that was specially made for that. So he was on at that time. 2008. He voiced himself on an episode of The Simpsons, and I can't tell you how many times this podcast we brought up The Simpsons, man. They just call the stars. Before they're stars, they get all these guys, man. I'm telling you, just hats off to The Simpsons for knowing who's going to hit it big, because, I mean, I think almost every big star we've talked about has been on The Simpsons. 2009, he came out the Rescue Me comedy tour, where he co-starred with Lenny Clark, the Boston legend, and Adam Ferrara. I think they started out doing it in New Jersey. It was his first comedy tour in 12 years, which, I mean, you do comedy as a stepping stone to get you to movies and get you to commercials, and once you're doing that, that fills your time, and you ain't got time to do the comedy thing anymore. But in the meantime, your fans are screaming for you to come back. I'll refer to Eddie Murphy. How long did he not do stand-up for, you know? He did stand-up. He had some of the biggest stand-up comedy specials ever. Became an arena act, but then he did movies, didn't stand up for years, and they were screaming for him to come back, and finally he hosted Saturday Night Live. I think it was one of the most tuned-in Saturday Night Lives in years, so hats off. He gave back to the fans, man. You know, I'm going to give you some comedy. He did some stand-up comedy and came back. you know, where he does the Boston thing. You know, comics come home every year, so if you want to see him there. But an actual tour where you ain't got to come to Boston, you go to other cities and see him. That's cool to give back to the fans. Let's see, he did a Comedy Central special, Douchebags and Donuts, and Netflix is taking over now, but before that it was Comedy Central, man. They had on all the big comedians, and he was on in that time, man. Comedy Central comes calling. You're at the top of your game right there. Here's one I actually admire him for, even more than his comedy career. He's been married to the same woman since 1989. They met at Emerson College, and most comedians, we talk about divorce and child support, including myself, but this guy, man, he made it work, and hats off to him, you know, because he's a busy guy doing comedy, I'm sure, and to manage, you know, a marriage and make it work, well, thumbs up by me, man, because you got some kids and they don't have to suffer the family law thing that I've gone through and the living hell of parental alienation. So good for him. I admire him more for keeping his family together than I even do his comedy career. Here's a local one we all know about, and hats off to him. He came running when this went down. He founded the Dennis Leary Fighter Foundation. 1999, 6 firefighters right here in Worcester, where I'm at, lost their lives in a fire. It was a warehouse fire. They were killed. That was his hometown. Some of the firefighters, you know, that passed away in that fire included one of Dennis Leary's cousin and one of his longtime friends. So in response to that, he founded that foundation. He's distributed over $2.5 million to fire stations worldwide. He once won $125,000 for the foundation by being a celebrity guest on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. And he did a lot of work with now defunct radio station WAAF in Boston, but that was the #1 radio station in Boston for the longest time. So, man, he gave back, man. He saw something happen in his hometown, and he came running to help. So, and like I said, I'll say it again, you never forget where you come from, man. Never forget where you come from, you know. He could have easily said, hey, I'm busy, I got bigger things to do. No, I'll make time when, you know, when something calls for it, you make the time. I don't care how busy you are. I guess the biggest thing, you know, controversial wise, and geez, how do I say this? He's not the first guy to do it, probably won't be the last guy. I guess the controversy is he was friends with Bill Hicks, and he was accused of stealing Bill Hicks's jokes. To date, 3 mainstream comedians have came out and accused him of stealing jokes. And I mean, yeah, I mean, joke stealing, that goes back to the beginning of comedy, you know. I mean, I think it was he's not the first guy to do it. But you want to hear the genius? Here's the genius. Longtime friend Lenny Clark. During Dennis Leary's 2003 Comedy Central roast, Lenny Clark came out with the joke, there's a carton of cigarettes backstage from Bill Hicks with a message, wish I had gotten these to you sooner. And it was such a good joke, and it was such a killer, they ended up cutting it from the broadcast. It was such a genius joke by Lenny. But I mean, it cut so deep that they ended up cutting it from the broadcast. I wish they would have left it in, because if you can't have your friends harassing you, who can harass you? But, you know, joke stealing goes back to Milton Berle was a notorious joke thief. There were stories about Robin Williams got his ass kicked at the Comedy Store a few times backstage for stealing other people's routines. I remember on one of the comedy shows I watched, they said, you know, a joke is anybody's joke until it's heard on TV. Once it's heard on TV, then it becomes your joke. Where we're in a day and age now, you know, you can put your joke on YouTube and date it. So if somebody takes it, you can say, hey, look at me on YouTube, it's dated, I was there first. Well, back in the day, you couldn't do that stuff. I remember listening to a radio show, Andrew Dice Clay was on it, and they told Andrew that one comedian accused him of stealing that routine from him, and Andrew's like, ha, wrong, I stole that from somebody else. And he made a joke about it. He said, yeah, what, you know what, I'm the first one to do that, I invented that, I didn't, you know, he said, I hear something I like, I use it. So it's a common thing. Is it a scrupulous thing? You could debate that all day. I mean, somebody works hard to come up with a joke, and it should be their joke. It's their routine. They came up with it. But comedy is a cutthroat business, okay? And I've said it before. You're either going to get dirty or you're going to go home, because it's a dirty business. And if you're not going to be ready to get dirty in this business, then it's certainly not cut out for you. All right, let's go see what the fans had to say about Mr. Dennis Leary here. They had quite a bit to chime in. And it's always good when the fans come out. That means they're interested in what you're doing. So, boom, here we go. All right, Robert Magolian. The Asshole song is always the first thing I think of when I hear his name. I remember trying hard to track him down after hearing it played on my favorite morning radio show back in the day. So when you hear a song and you're tracking it down to try and get it so you can play it over and over again and listen, you know you got a hit right there. Let's see, Brian Morgan writes in, there was that one time when he, oh, wait, that was Bill Hicks. Well, he did really funny bit. Wait, that was also Bill Hicks. Well, the asshole song, it was really funny concept. Well, Louis T.K. gave him that, so he's getting his balls busted here by Brian. Pat O'Shea says, you beat me to it. I guess he was going to say the same thing. And, hey, say what you want. Guy's got millions of dollars. He's doing the biggest things in comedy. Let's see. Todd LaFawn writes in, when he did the sensitivity training on Rescue Me, that was epic, okay? And Rescue Me, I don't know if that was, you know, it's a show about firefighters. Is it a reference to, you know, the Worcester firefighters where he lost friends and family? Is a show about that? I don't know, but certainly a funny show. You want to tune in to see Boston comedy legends for sure. Let's see. Bobby J. Berry, when he did the fireman fundraiser for the victims of Worcester, we talked about that. Comics Come Home, and put that together, pay tribute to Here Worcester, and Turtle Boy Can Be Proud right behind me. Let's see. Jesse Young, The Ref was epic. Okay, so that's one of his movies, The Ref. I guess you like that. Susan Hansen writes in, I gotta say, his voiceover work in all the Ice Age movies, my nephew loves his character. And you know, I gotta say too, he entertained me as a comedian. I loved his work, and he entertained my son. I watched the Ice Age movies with him, and he actually loved those. Working with Ray Romano, you know, you're at the top of your game when you're working with names like that in comedy. Let's see, Dan Guerin, the first time I saw him, it was the second time I heard Bill Hicks. So he was famous. I mean, he stole a lot of Bill Hicks's jokes, and you know, you do that to a friend, that's kind of a tough one, but comedy's a dirty business. You do what you got to do to survive, man, and he did what he had to do, and he survived. The strong survive and the weak fail. P.J. Brown, all his Bill Hicks swipes. Todd Norton, the MTV commercial rants back in the 90s. Yeah, I mean, that was where he made his name. Everybody didn't even know his name, but you knew him for the rant guy. He's the rant guy. He rants about everything. Mike Clark, Lenny Clark's brother, and he's the booker at Giggles Comedy Club's the home base for Lenny. He knows Dennis, you know, way back. The Job on ABC, best show ever, and that was one of his hit TV series before he did Rescue Me. And Steve Tobin chimes in, I liked Rescue Me better than The Job, though, but he didn't get to see. I didn't get to see enough episodes. So I mean, you know, any show, you know, you got to follow along. You can't just catch an episode here or there. You got to watch every episode to really fully get what's going on in the show. Rodney Wirth, the MTV half-hour comedy hour in the late 80s, had 5-minute spots on them. Chris Rock, David Spade, and more before they made it. So, you know, he was one of all the main, you know, comedy guys of today who before they made it, they're on TV, MTV, doing these comedy spots. So you got to start somewhere, and that's where you start. It's where you get noticed, man. Steve Bathello sat in the first row at Nick's back in 1988, and he blew smoke in my face. He was known for smoking cigarettes, and I guess that was his thing, a chain smoker, which Bill Hicks was also known for being a chain smoker comedian. So who knows, folks? What do you think, Turtle Boy? Turtle Boy's still standing. He knows what's going on. Michael Young writes, not a fan, so I guess everybody's not a fan. Mike Young's not. Scotty Lombardo got bumped at Caroline's when he showed up one time. He asked if I was nervous. I said, hell yes. Then he said, when it stops, so doesn't the fun. So if you stop getting nervous, then the fun, that ain't going to get you. And I remember I heard that about a comic. Like, he wouldn't come out and perform unless it was $500 a night. And somebody said, man, it's a huge crowd. It's for a good cause. He's like, dude, I'd rather sit home and, you know, be with my family. Unless it's big money, I don't want to go out. And if you get to that point in comedy, maybe it's time to hang it up and give up to somebody who's passionate about it. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know all how you look at it, I guess. But at the same time, you know, you want to get paid if you're a mainstream comic. It's not a hobby anymore. It's a job. So it's all how you look at it. Ralph Tetta, I opened for him back in 1989. Good act, worked his ass off, and no Hicks jokes. So disappointed when he lifted those later on in his career. Jack Wallace, The Job, okay? So there's a series, man. You got to go back there. You might want to Google that one and watch The Job, because a lot of people are chiming in about that series. You know, we all know because it's from our time, Rescue Me. You know, it's a little bit before our time when we were younger, The Job. So classic series, I'm sure. Danny Weiss, The Ref is a classic. Mike Douglas, when he stole Bill Hicks' act, boy, they're giving him shit about Bill Hicks. I guess deserved, maybe allegedly deserved, because you got to say allegedly. Steve Tobin saw him in the basement of Play It Again Sam's in Brighton sometime in the early 80s, along with Bobcat Goldthwait, Jonathan Katz, and Santarelli, and Mike Lee. Believe that was the lineup long before any of them were famous. And yeah, it's cool, you know, when you don't know, we're all comics and we're doing the thing, and you know, somebody you're hitting an open mic with today may be the big star tomorrow, and you're on the same stage with them. It's always cool. I always say it's cool hitting the same stage that Dane Cook played a lot of the places that I'm performing on, so it's just cool to say you've been on the same stage as him, if nothing else. Let's see. Brian Pelicano writes in, actually my favorite memory is what he did for the Worcester firefighters after his cousin died. We talked about that. He gave back. Dennis Brennan simply says Bill Hicks. We've heard about that. Joe Flynn, Dennis Leary, and Tony V, who's another Boston legend, used to rent cars from my agency every Friday so they could go to New York. Couldn't have been nicer guys, and that's cool, you know. When you're nice to people, they're renting cars to go to New York and do their comedy thing, do what they love to do. Michael Carrigan, the Ford truck commercials, certainly, you know, if your name's associated with the #1 truck company in America, that's big stuff right there. Patrick S. Sullivan, The Sandlot, Donnie Buzzle, The A-Hole Song, Michael Buster McMahon, when he was on Conan or Letterman, and he was going to get Doc Gooden some cocaine before the Yankee playoff run. The audience booed him and said, don't care, boo me if you want. I hate the Yankees. He's a Boston guy. Sniff, he's my hero. That's my hero, so referring to cocaine allegedly. But that's the comedic way out. You take it right there. Also, Michael Buster McMahon. I liked him in the motor oil commercials, too. I wouldn't lie to you. They're not paying me enough to lie to you, okay? So I wouldn't lie to you about the oil. They're not paying me enough to lie. But I did hear him back before he hit big. He was on, I think it might have been AAF, and they were asking what motor oil commercial. He couldn't even remember the brand name. I don't know. I did the motor oil, I don't remember the name. It's a stupid commercial. And they were asking, well, how much did they pay you for that? He's like, I don't remember. You could have bought a house with it. It's like, so what, like $100,000? And then it's like, oh, well, you buy cheap houses, huh? It was probably $400,000 or $500,000, but to him that was cheap money at the time because he was the star, you know. And to you, you're thinking $100,000's a lot of money. He's making 4 or 5 times that. So that's always cool. When you hit the big time, you forget how a little bit of money goes a long way. Tracy Lynch, when Greg Giraldo lit him up on Colin Quinn's show Tough Crowd. And Greg Giraldo, he's passed on, but certainly I remember Tough Crowd. Some of the bigger comedians at the time were on that, and they went at each other, and it was a good thing. Dennis Leary, man, he gave us so much. You know, did he cross the line and steal some stuff? Allegedly he did. You know, do you do what you got to do to survive in the business? Absolutely you do. The strong survive and the weak fail. So, you know, I always say, do you want to be the most liked person in an open mic, or do you want to get dirty and go for the big time? Because you can't have both, okay? You can't have everybody like you and go big time. If you're going to go big time, you got to worry about yourself, and you got to get dirty, because that's the business we're in. Talk about getting dirty, just ask Turtle Boy here before me. I'm in Worcester, Mass, talking about comedian Dennis Leary. He gave back to the city, never forgot where he came from, gave us a lot of memories. And hey, long remember the Worcester Firefighter Department, because he gave back to them. And get a chance, check out Comics Come Home, because all the comedians in Boston, we look up to those guys and wish we were on it. This is Funny Like a Clown podcast. Keep laughing, do what you got to do, because laughter is the best medicine. Until the next episode, long live the turtle.